finish train rolling, we do a little trolling, dodge that bullet and take back what was stolen. The God Emperor of the universe rises again. The time traveler, adventurer is rising, rising. The great American spirit is rising again. 4-7, forever, forever, until the very end. Fight to the very end. Fight, 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 fight.
We're on a roll this morning. I just want to apologize, man. I'm sorry. I know that we took a second, but we got some very lively phone calls last night from some people in the know, talking about why they told me Kamala's going to stop campaigning tomorrow. They told me. So we wanted to be up with that news first, and live during the show, Kamala announces she's going to stop campaigning.
Wow. Good job. You got yourself a scalp. Excellent.
So, Mark, talk to me about Rasmussen, the most accurate pollster in America, what you guys showing, and we'll pop. I know you've sent our production team some information. We'll put it up.
Yeah, I mean, my latest race numbers are actually kind of boring compared to, I think you absolutely hit every single point about what's going on right now. And what I spent my time doing waiting to go on is reading a story from December 1st, 1980 in Time magazine, written by a man named John Stacks, thinking back about how nobody predicted the massive wave of crushing defeat that Ronald Reagan dealt out to Jimmy Carter. And all of this introspection about, well, was there a last minute gut check? Was there this big bang where everybody just changed their minds? Or were the pollsters lying the entire time? And quite frankly, I don't think they ever figured it out. But having lived through a cycle that looks exactly like Reagan Carter, I'm here to tell you the pollsters were lying, and we predicted this outcome, but we did not predict that it would happen this crazy and this far from Election Day. And so what we might see over the next 2 weeks is what people in the industry call a preference cascade, because the numbers you're showing the daily chart. And there we are. We hit a Trump +3 the other night. Now we're back to a Trump +2. But it's been Trump +2 national popular vote in our numbers and only our numbers for basically the last 2 months, while everybody else is screwing around with Harris +4s and Harris +5s. But I can't even keep up with how fast the industry is moving back to the right. And state by state, in every single one of these swing states, it looks like increasingly crushing defeats. The Real Clear Politics aggregate, again, including all the lefties, including the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, shows that Georgia is completely off the table for Kamala Harris. I mean, we have 2.5% average now, and we had Georgia at like +3. So everybody agrees with us. She's not winning Georgia. North Carolina is going to poll where Georgia does. And all of these other states, like Arizona, is now almost a Trump 2-point lead, again, including all the lefties. So it's like every second you see absolutely more crushing and horrible news that means this is unwinnable for her. And with 2 weeks from now to Election Day, what's the narrative going to be? It's exactly what you're talking about. It's Democrats throwing each other under the bus. It's retrospection about how the polls could be so bad, about how they thought that they could force her down everybody's throats, about how whether she's better or worse than Joe Biden. And none of it is anything that will help them win on the ballots. I just don't see. Now we're talking about how big the Senate's going to be at this point.
You brought up Real Clear Politics, so let's hop on over there. No swing, no toss-ups. So here's their map. Do you agree with this? Do you agree with this map? This is, I got to tell you, this is something that I can imagine every woman at The View is up late into the night, shaking, a shaky hand, slowly reaching towards the wine fridge, right? And the bottle of Xanax. Looking at this map, do you agree?
Yeah, 100%.
Because your poll's in this map. Your poll blends into these numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of our states were statistical ties, but what we're talking about here is this is the no toss-ups map, okay? And so we're not seeing the size of the margin. And every day, the margin in every single one of these states is getting bigger and bigger towards Trump. And if you look at the previous cycles in 2016 and 2020, there was always, in every single one of them, in almost every single state, this last week of election day surge towards Trump. I don't think we've even seen that yet. I think that's still coming. Okay. So now, again, some of these are tighter than others. There's a little bit of a fog of war around Michigan and Nevada in terms of the polling. I'm going to poll those states again in the next week or two. I expect to see rightward movement. But in my opinion, what it comes down to is we've seen Trump on the ballot in presidential cycles. He always outperforms the polling. I think that's going to be the case again, which is why all of the election models and all of the betting markets show that it's a solid Trump win. And what you're seeing on Twitter is increasing levels of mental gymnastics to try and look at the early voting, the registration stuff, the fact that, well, maybe in 2022, the Republicans didn't outperform the poll. I mean, like, the level of mental gymnastics is getting bigger and bigger, and there's starting to be a lot of cognitive dissonance now on Twitter, and they wouldn't be mining early voting returns if they thought they were going to win. Let's just put it that way.
Kamala Harris, according to CNN, and according to people who are leaking on her campaign to CNN, have moved significant resources to Virginia. What does that tell you, Mark?
What we thought, right? I polled Virginia. I think it was in the middle of September. We got Harris +3. That's almost the statistical tie. That's at the margin of error. That was a week after the presidential debate. The states have all moved right. And that means, like, I'm going back into the field in a day or two in Virginia. I think I'm going to find a statistical tie. Again, in a situation where even our state polling is probably too left and where Donald Trump is going to outperform. I think Virginia's on the table. I think he might pick off some of these other states too.
So you're talking like what? A New Hampshire? I know he's doing an event there.
So
what are you looking at picking off on this map?
Yeah, I didn't pull New Hampshire, but I had Minnesota at Harris +3 as well. That one could be on the table. And all of these states, I mean, I looked at data from New York and New Jersey, and I'm not saying that Trump's going to win those, but the margin has gotten way, way, way tighter for sure. Donald Trump is now doing about twice as good as he did in New York in our data. So you have a massive rightward shift, and I'm talking about necessarily states I haven't polled. But when the national popular vote moves 6 points to the right, as it did in the last 4 years, those people live in states. Those states are all moving right. There are going to probably be some surprises. Absolutely 100%. And there may be other surprises between now and Election Day. Can't discount the fact that the regime is powerful. Its interests are threatened. They have a lot of levers. I think people are concerned. All of our polling shows that. A lot of bad stuff could happen, especially on Election Day. So again, I don't think we're out of the woods. I think political divisiveness is at a peak. I think people are concerned about cheating. I think there's threats of violence. I think more voters in this country than ever think that we're going to see a civil war or revolution in the next few years. And so a lot of stuff could happen. But from a polling perspective, it's a solid Trump win right now, as we've been saying for months and months and months.
I would love, I mean, you are a hard math guy, algorithmic guy, taking the crosstabs guy. Every time you release a poll, Mark, this is sort of what I see. This is you. So this is Mark like handing me new poll numbers. This is what I see. Put it up, Klein. No. Yeah, in the chat. There you go. This is Mark handing me a hot new poll every single day. Every time I get a new fresh, piping hot bit of polling from Mark, this is me, and I say, please, more salt, Mark. Okay, it's a joke. How much? What does this say to the disaffected American who wants a servant leader, who all worked fast food jobs like me, who've been waiters their entire life? The left has been demonically screaming over this for days. I come from a working class family. I'd assume you come from a working class family. Most Americans do, and we freaking love this.
Yep.
Has it had any effect on the polls? And what's your greater takeaway about like the Trump McDonald stop?
So I'm seeing my states break right. I think that may have been September post-debate response bias. I have not really seen my national numbers break right yet, and I expect to see more rightward movement in the states. So it's hard to say whether this has had an immediate impact yet. But I think it's the idea is that no matter what she does day after day after day, she's racking up losses and Donald Trump is racking up wins. So if we're going to Monday morning quarterback this thing, what, in my opinion, it says is that not only are all of the fundamentals against Kamala Harris winning, people's prices have shot up through the roof. They think they're worse off than they were 4 years ago. They don't think she's competent. Republicans have a lead on almost every single issue. There's this added thing that I haven't quite figured out in the polling to reflect that she's not an authentic human being. Donald Trump is. Donald Trump is appealing to all these people. I just put a tweet up. I thought it really shows kind of some stunning context for this race. And keep in mind, these are Democrats that are tied in to Manhattan marketing firms. They're tied into the absolute best big data that money can buy. They have a massive funding gap over the Republicans. They have any Hollywood actor on literally the tips of their fingers whenever they snap their fingers. And yet that's not what people want anymore. They don't want it at all. I went to Google Trends and I just said, well, how can I try and capture this? And if you just look in Google Trends over the last 10 years, 20 years, and search the term movie trailer and search the term podcast, you see an absolute death cross where movie trailers are being searched 70% less than they were just 10 years ago, and podcasts are being searched 3 times more. People want human authenticity. They don't want to be lied to. They don't want regime gaslighting. They don't want literally monolithic marketing, and that's all she has. She hasn't addressed like the fact that she went on Fox News and she thought a good strategy, and not only her, she was prepped for that. She has a huge staff. They literally have any expert in the nation will come and tell them exactly how to handle that. And she went in and basically like kicked over shelves and broke glass and knocked pictures off the wall. How is that going to win voters? Like, what was the strategy there? And they don't even know that it was stupid. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Okay, I'll raise you one, Mark. All right, I'll raise you one. You say that her going on Fox News and throwing a literal sorority girls hissy fit with when Brett Baer just asked her to defend her own policies, which I find remarkable. Brett Baer follows us on X, so I DM'd him. I'm like, way to go, bro. You just like asked her questions to defend her own policy. That's it. That's all you have to do. There's not a gotcha in it, any of it. None of it was a gotcha. None of it was like we found something in your past from 30 years ago and your sister's best friend's lover said something about you. None of it. It was just like defend yourself. And she couldn't.
Yeah. Here's the top 5 questions you can expect to be asked. Like they didn't need to be given those questions. Any level of self-introspection. Any level.
Bro. So, you say that that's the dumbest thing you've ever seen. I'll raise you this. Kamala Harris just campaigned with Liz Cheney. And
well, she's trying to win about Dick Cheney's endorsement. Like
she's trying to win Arab voters. She's trying to win Arab voters in Michigan, and she wants to bring the Cheney name back to be Secretary of Defense. Ian Sams, the Kamala spokesperson, is out like trying to downplay the fact that Rick Grinnell figured out that they want to put Cheney as the Secretary of Defense. Okay? No Republican I know would be down with that. No Democrat I know would be down with that. And let me tell you a population that ain't down with that. The Arabs that live in Michigan. And I think that it's showing. So you say that Fox News was dumb. I say this is dumber.
It's pretty dumb. This is the party of Cindy Sheehan. This is the party of Cindy Sheehan. Just 20 years ago. That's who they were. And now look at where we're at.
Wow. Who exactly is this supposed to appeal to, Mark?
I mean, maybe the same people that switched registration to vote for Nikki Haley to keep Donald Trump out of the candidacy.
That's a great point.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, bringing back a Cheney as Secretary of Defense. I don't think it's gonna work. I just don't. This did work. This did work. Do you think that President Trump will actually remake this image at the White House when he's sworn in? Because he could very easily, Mark. He could. There's a lot of windows at the White House in the U.S. Capitol. Trump could just do a full, since it is the most famous, other than an assassination attempt, it is the most famous political image of this campaign. I think that's inarguable. I think Trump could recreate it, Mark.
Think about how basic this image is, though. Think about how much context is captured, how it hits exactly the right vibe, how all of social media is primed to spread it, how all of the things that it lays bare about Kamala Harris's campaign was immediately exposed. And it's just a picture of him smiling and waving at a McDonald's. That's what's crazy to me. This isn't like his ears bleeding all over his face in some assassination attempt that he somehow survived with the hand of God. He literally just went to a McDonald's, hung out with some people, was smiled and nodded, was nice to folks. This is like any politician 20 years should have been able to do this. But it has to be a heavily scripted and edited affair. And they don't even know, they don't know what Americans want. They think that Americans liked Bidenomics still. How are you going to have an authentic campaign if that's your frame of reference?
I said hanging in the Louvre, right? When I first saw that image. And
yeah.
Our team was able
there
to
it
actually,
is. Nice.
Yeah, our team was able to do
The
it.
French don't like that picture, though. Probably not.
I think, deep levels of trolling that they're called French fries, and that's what Donald Trump was making. So, okay.
Meta.
In just a final thing, because you are known and loved by our audience, Mark. And you were the first guy months ago. You came on this program the first time you came on, and you said, when everyone was laughing at you, saying, you declared Trump could win the national vote. He could win the popular vote. And you said it, and that clip went viral, and there's like a troll army, right, underneath. No one's laughing now, homie.
No, now that Fox News, a left-wing pollster, is showing that Trump is also winning the national popular vote. The New York Times came out with a similar result. Atlas, Intel, and Trafalgar are right there with us, and everybody else is creeping back to the right. When NBC goes from Harris +5 to a tie in like a month, when now Tip, who's doing the only other people doing a daily tracker, goes from Harris +4 to Trump +2 in a week. I mean, my numbers haven't changed. I don't know. Everybody is coming to where I'm at. And we were right. Like, not a single time has Harris or Biden in the last year ever beaten Donald Trump. And I've been saying that, and everybody knows I've been saying that. And horrible Biden administration. Everybody's hurting. All the fundamentals, it's so obvious. And even now that every single other sign is validating exactly what they found, they still can't bring themselves to say it. They still can't. And it's like the absolute unified wall of Democrat media just trying to save a Senate seat or two, or doing whatever they can, or preventing that introspection, or trying to keep a hold of their highly gaslit viewers. I don't know what it is, but it's ugly, and it's going to get worse for them, because I think you're just going to see an absolute mental implosion.
Yes, because everything they've said about Donald Trump is a lie. I think that's the final takeaway here, and that's the final takeaway. And I'll give you the last thought on this, but that's why Trump waving through the window and handing out fries is so powerful, is because a dictator wouldn't do that. A threat to democracy wouldn't do that. There's this MSNBC clip, bro, that went viral of some woman having a meltdown of Donald Trump just serving people fries, and from McDonald's, saying he's a threat to democracy for doing it. The whole charade is collapsing down. And when President Trump is president again, and gas goes cheap, and the America you knew and loved under Trump returns, I think that they're facing an existential survival crisis, which is what the show's about. This is the phone calls I got last night. Is like Kamala Harris has put them in. Kamala Harris was the last ditch effort to survive and keep the coalition together of the brainwashed and the lepers and like the people who are totally smooth, room temperature IQ. Like those people, they have to be fed something. And when the propaganda fails, they're left with nothing. And you may destroy the Democrat Party for a generation.
Yeah, they probably need an internal civil war. And I will tell you, things are really ugly in this country. But Atlantic's Hitler, Mussolini, and Stalin rolled into one would not hand burgers to people outside of a window. But I just want to run through some quick numbers. Some of these are released and some aren't. Who is the biggest enemy America currently faces? For the first time, the Democratic Party nationally is the number one enemy, 30%.
Wow.
Followed by China at 20%. How likely is it that America will experience another civil war or revolution in the next few years? We're now up to 43%. That's a record. And now also we asked a new set of questions. How likely is it there will be a violent reaction after the election if Kamala Harris is elected president or if Donald Trump is elected president? 51%, a majority of voters say it's at least somewhat likely if Kamala Harris is elected, but also 47% if Trump is elected. This is 2 weeks away. half the country basically thinks that there's going to be violence if either of them are elected. And it's literally like it's 64% of Democrats. And that's because they're watching MSNBC. Half of MSNBC watchers think the biggest issue facing our country is Trump's threat to democracy. So we're in a really scary time. Again, I would also put out, people are concerned about cheating. 66% of people think the outcome of this election is going to be stolen, basically. If you're an election official, if you're a secretary of state, if you're look at these polls. America is not in a healthy place right now. America needs to know as fast as possible, regardless of who wins, as fast as possible who wins this election, because it's not in a good place to have a repeat of 2000.
Yes. Yeah. I believe that, and here's some of the polling that you were talking about here. Make sure that everyone is following Rasmussen reports and also following Mark, who is just an absolute must-follow pollster. I think that you're right, and maybe that I have a bad habit, Mark, of being on the silver linings, sunny side of things. But I think that there's a ruling class referred to as the blob, deep state, whatever, the parasitic class. You can't govern a country that has zero faith in its institutions. You can't govern a country that has zero faith in its monetary policy, its federal law enforcement, and its judicial system. And they've broken it to the point of, pardon me, inoperability. Its elections, you can't go, that country doesn't function. The whole system collapsed under the weight of its own corruption, which is what we saw in the Soviet Union, actually. Soviet Union was bound to fail. It's based on the endemic corruption systemically, like a tapeworm that ran straight through the organs of the country. And America is reaching that point, and we need to pull back. You need to pull back from the brink. And I personally believe, this is my optimistic take, I personally believe that they've said, like, no funny business. Like, it's time to shore up our institutions, and it's time to like prove to people that we can actually run we can run a clean race here. And I think you've watched some wild moves, like Chuck Schumer clapping Trump on the back and like hamming it up with Trump at the Al Smith dinner. Multiple Trump enemies coming up to him and kissing his ass at the Al Smith dinner. Yeah. I think there's been a major, there's been a massive change, and the Senate Democrats running Trump ads. I mean, that's the one that pushes me over the edge. Senate Democrats running Trump ads.
I think, yeah, I agree with you. I have no idea how I would know that as a pollster, but what I'm telling you is the voters don't know or think that yet, and they need to find out if that's really the case. Yeah. Because what we're talking about here is, at a certain point, a parasitic entity determines whether its host survives or not. And I think that's where we're at. And like you say, they have power to do a lot of things. The toolbox is big. And at a certain point, there has to be a decision about whether to escalate or not. And unfortunately, from an American perspective, I think the voters think there is a lot of accelerationism going on here. And I don't know exactly how to poll on this, but we have examples. Americans overwhelmingly, 57%, think that some people are promoting mass immigration to the U.S. as part of a political agenda to replace the existing American population. That's just one example. And 51% of majority think the Great Replacement theory is not some grand right-wing conspiracy theory, but a basic statement of the Democrat Party platform. So that's just one example. And again, it's really hard to get at this in a way that voters can tell you what the signal is. But if that decision has been made and what you saw at the Al Smith dinner was correct, how cynical is that? That literally the future of democracy is being decided in a back room by DC power brokers.
Great point. It's such a great point. Mike Benz is on here talking about how the assassination attempts won't stop until certain metrics are met by President Trump. It's a very interesting long form interview, but it's not what we think. It's not the country we think it is, but we can fix it. There's still time. Yeah. I think that's the faith that we have. Everybody follow Mark. Here we go. This is the account. Mark is the best. He also has a beautiful Jersey Shore. Make Jersey look like that again. You should, put the hat on, Mark. You make it. I'll wear one, pal. Make Jersey look like this again. The great Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen. God bless you, man. Thank you.
Happy to be here.